sailed to Tarshish to flee from the Lord.
Alright. Jonah, God, back up here. Alright, so God comes to Jonah and he says, Jonah, I want you to go and I want you to preach to the people of Nineveh. And Jonah, he actually doesn't even respond. There's no dialogue from Jonah. God just says, all right, Jonah, I want you to do this. And so Jonah, obviously, from the text we just read, he decides, you know what, rather than do this thing that God has asked me to do, I think I'm going to run. I think I'm going to run away. And so notice, if you will, the route that Jonah took. Jonah went, first he goes down to Joppa, and then he goes down, or he finds a boat that is going down to Tarshish, and then what happens? He goes down into the boat. So Jonah's route took him down, down, down. And if you notice from the text or from our demonstration right here, obviously the further down that Jonah got, the further away he got from God. Jonah got right there. The further down that Jonah went, stay there for the moment. The further down that Jonah went, the further away he got from God. Alright, you guys can go sit down. Go ahead and keep reading for us, Justin. What happens next?
Then the Lord sent great wind on the sea.
Alright, so Jonah, he's on his way down to Tarshish, and the storm comes, and the boat is sinking, and Jonah, he comes to the guys finally, and he says, you know what? It's my fault. It's my fault. I've angered the Lord. Throw me overboard. Cast me into the sea. I haven't told you this yet, but there is a lot of irony in the book of Jonah. A lot of irony here. In verse 13, you'll notice that Jonah, he wants to be thrown overboard. He asks the guys, just throw me into the sea, and then the storm will be calm. And the sailors, they do everything they can to not throw Jonah into the sea. First, they throw away their possessions that are weighting down the boat, and then they throw away some more stuff. They grab the oars, and they try to row with all their might, and then they get down on their knees, and they pray to their gods, and then they actually get down on their knees, and they pray to Jonah's God, saying, God, we don't want to do this. Please forgive us for doing what we're about to do. So the sailors had more compassion on Jonah, more compassion on a man that they didn't even know than Jonah did for the entire city of Nineveh. God asked him to go preach to Nineveh. He didn't want to. He did not want to do that. He had no compassion on the people of Nineveh. But the sailors, who don't even know Jonah, don't even know God, they had compassion on Jonah. They did not want him to throw him overboard. Let's keep reading. What happens next?
But the Lord provided a great fish to swallow.
Alright, so the great fish, he comes and he swallows Jonah. And the ironic thing here, there's a little bit more irony, I know. If you remember Jonah's route at the beginning, he went down, and then he went down, and then he went down some more. And now, what happens to Jonah? But God is causing him to go down even further. Down into the depths of the sea. So now Jonah is at the absolute lowest of lows. He cannot go any further. Both literally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. Jonah is inside of a fish, and he cannot go down any further. So that is Jonah's route. Down, down, down into the depths of the ocean. But there's a little bit more irony here, and this is really cool. If you were to describe somebody today who had a heart of compassion, or who had compassion, you would say it comes from the heart. A lot of our emotions, we say, it comes from the heart. Even David's lesson, heart of faith. That emotion, that passion, that feeling, it comes from the heart. And so, if If something bad was happening to someone and I took compassion on him today, you would say, oh, you know, he has a really good heart. But that wasn't the case in Jonah's day. In Jonah's day, the feeling of compassion came from the gut. So you might say, I'm a very compassionate person. The feeling of compassion, it came from the gut. It was a gut-level reaction that when something bad happened, when you saw something bad happening to somebody, oh, it turned your insides. It made your stomach, it made you just sick to your stomach because of the compassion. So that's where compassion came from. And so the ironic thing is that Jonah, he's down in the depths of the sea. He's down as low as he can possibly go. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, he's far from God. But yet God has Jonah wrapped and completely surrounded and protected in the stomach of this fish. In the stomach, if you will, of God's compassion. Because God caused this fish to swallow Jonah. So Jonah is surrounded, he's protected, and he is completely covered by God's compassion. Even when he is in the lowest place possible, the lowest of lows. That's pretty amazing in itself. Let's keep reading. Wait. Yeah. Well, let's not keep reading. Jonah chapter 2. I'm going to summarize. Sorry. I'm on the wrong page. Jonah chapter 2, we're not going to actually read. Jonah chapter 2 is Jonah's prayer to God. And I encourage you, after we're done, to read the entire book of Jonah. It'll only take you not very long because it's 4 chapters. There's really only about 10 to 15 verses in each chapter. Chapter 2 is Jonah's prayer to God. Jonah prays to God inside the belly of this fish. The funny thing about his prayer, though, when you go back and read it, notice that Jonah never actually says to God, I'm sorry. Jonah never actually says, my bad. Jonah never actually says, I messed up, I did wrong. And Jonah actually prays to God, God, thank you for delivering me from this fish. So Jonah knew that God answered prayers, obviously, but Jonah never actually said, I'm sorry. He never actually asked God for forgiveness. He just expected it. He just expected it to be there and expected it to come. But sure enough, it does come for him. And the fish spits Jonah up on dry ground. So we'll pick it up in chapter 3.
Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Go to the great city of Nineveh